returned from non-public session. Does anyone care to make a motion to come out of non-public session?
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Ms. Walsh and seconded by Ms. Higgins. If you can get
It's
that.
quite harmonic, by the way.
It was.
We
We practiced.
Is there any discussion? Let's go through a roll call because coming back is a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Go for it, Barb.
Mr. Weinberg.
Aye.
Ms. West.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Cannon. Okay.
Said
yeah,
aye.
yeah. She said aye. Ms. Hastings.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh. Aye. Mr. Richards.
Aye.
And I say aye as well.
Forgot Mr. Did you get Mr. Cotton?
Oh, Mr. Cotton. I started with Mr. Weinberg. I'm so sorry.
All right, so the vote is unanimous to come out of non-public session. Do I have a motion to seal the minutes pursuant to RSA 91-A:5, Roman numeral 11?
Wow.
So moved.
Very good, Ms.
I'll second.
West, and seconded by Mr. Parker. And does this have to be a roll call, or can this can be a voice vote? So unless there's any discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. So we have come out of the non-public session, sealed the minutes, and we are ready to move on with our agenda for those of you who weren't here and joined us earlier. This is the July 5th, 2022 regular board meeting of the Concord School Board. So far, we have covered our call to order, our attendance, and went into a non-public session. We are now on to item number 3, and that is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any modifications they would like to make to the agenda that was sent out? Not seeing any, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as published?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Hastings, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Higgins. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The agenda is approved. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. This will cover the regular monthly meeting of last month, June, the special board meeting and public hearing on June 21st, the minutes from the City and Community Relations meeting, the minutes from the instructional, the minutes from the capital facilities, and the joint City Council School Board meeting on June 24th. All of those are in your packet. Does anyone have any modifications, corrections, or changes to any of those items? Yes, Ms. West.
I did just want to say, I'm not sure if we have all of the biographies. I know it's not, because we're going to consent agenda approve the capital facilities, but it's not on the agenda again. So I just didn't know if we had all the biographies from the board.
No.
For capital, no, we definitely.
We don't. So I just wanted to mention that one more time to everyone
For the
somehow.
Thank you, but
Something.
that's not a change. It's just a informational reminder for all of us, including myself, that haven't submitted those
The
yet.
only time it said capital facilities, so I wasn't sure when to interject.
No, that's great. I'm glad you put it in. So I admonish all my fellow board members to not be like me and to do a good job on getting
Or me.
those in, so.
Or me.
Yes, Mr. Weinberg.
I just want to make sure on for the joint city school board committee, I noticed that for the school board committee members present, there's not another section for additional school board members that might have been present on that day. I was not there, but I'm pretty confident that there were other people in addition to Brenda Hastings and David Parker who were at that in attendance.
I was not at that meeting, so were there other people
Were there
from the board
others?
that were there?
I think Mr. Cotton was
Cotton,
there.
so we need to add Mr. Cotton to that.
As well.
Thank
So
you.
I'm not sure if that means we need to take it out of consent or if that just means we can add Mr. Cotton. Perfect.
For this point, I think we can just amend that.
Awesome. Okay.
And then to be, when we approve the consent agenda, that it will include that as amended. Is that okay, Superintendent? So, are there any objections to Mr. Weinberg's amendment to add Mr. Cotton and list that? Not seeing any. Okay, so that amendment is proposed by Mr. Weinberg and seconded by Ms. Walsh. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that amendment to that particular set of minutes is approved. Does anybody else have any other items they would like to discuss with regards to the consent agenda? Not seeing any. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve our consent agenda this evening?
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Higgins and seconded by Mr. Weinberg. All those in favor, or is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Not
Who made the motions again, please?
That motion was made by Ms. Higgins and seconded by Mr. Weinberg. And
You?
Ms. Cannon has a
Thank you.
good log of that as well, so we can check with her. All right, so the consent agenda has been approved. We will now move on to item number 5, negotiations. Separate than item 6? Or the same as item 6?
Same.
Same as item 6. Okay, so there was a committee meeting on June 29th of the Negotiations Committee. The purpose of that meeting was to review the proposed CEA contract and to, and that, all of that should be included in your minutes. The committee made a recommendation to the board to approve the contract. Would Mr. Dunn care to go over the key items of that contract for us this evening?
He will, but I'd like to make say a special thanks to the negotiations committee. They worked from October all the way through June to settle this agreement. You'll see in your packet tonight that it was a 4-year agreement. But I'm very appreciative of the work that Jack did. Larry Prince stayed with us and joined us, along with Michelle Guerin. And for the first time, we had a principal on our team. Sue Losey assisted and under the able advisory of Kathleen Peel. So I thought it was a good group. We worked hard to find common ground. I want to make a special thanks to the CEA, the Teachers Association. They hung in too. They had long hours. I know they spent a lot of time on it. And absolutely we're working to find the best agreement for the teachers in the district. I think this agreement is an agreement that keeps Concord where you all wanted Concord to be, attractive. I think that testament to that is the fact that later on tonight I'm going to share with you the vacancies for teaching positions, and you'll see that we're in really good shape. And I think that is attributed to a strong contract with a strong working relationship between the board, our office, as well as the Teachers Association. So I'm appreciative of the work that President Macri and their chief negotiator, Kim Blyer-Woods, did to reach this settlement. So I am going to turn it over to Jack.
No, thank you very much for that, Superintendent, and I think your sentiments are reflected by everyone on the board. We appreciate the fact that as we head into the bulk of this summer vacation, that their work has come to fruition at this point, well before we start any school. So, Mr. Dunn?
Yep, so I'll give
would
you
be
the
good enough
highlights
to
as I
review some
scoot
of them
through these.
for
Is that
our
all right?
public as well as the board?
So there will be a group that will get together to discuss 2 things: reformatting the contract and also discussing the impact of New Hampshire retirement on separation benefits. So that is on the first page.
And this is page 27 for everyone who has a book with us here. It is also in our, in the board packet that is published on our website if anyone is watching and would like to look at things in more detail and follow along. I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Dunn.
No problem. So again, this is a 4-year contract. The salary increases to the base, which is B1, will be 5% the first year with an adjusted scale, and then 3% to that adjusted scale, 3.25, and 3. In year 1, we will also have a base of $47,000 for the co-curricular scale, and then after that, it will go off of B1, which is what it normally does. For life insurance, we've raised the age from 65 to 70 for the life and the life and dismemberment. If I move on to the next piece, we've eliminated the payout of sick days to where now there is a guaranteed amount. As long as you put in the request, you will get anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 in your last year, and that amount decreases depending on when you give notice. If I continue to move on, and feel free to ask any questions, or we can ask questions at the end. For the work year, in year 3 of this contract, it will go to 184 days. That's adding 1 day from the current 183 days. And then for the work day, I think that's what discussed the 184. Oh, this also talked about meetings and how many staff meetings there will be a month, and that the administration can call a stand-up meeting if need be. I'm going to keep going. On the salaries and economic benefits, there is a cap for those that were hired after the 2006-2007 school year, that they cap out at the bachelor step 10. There's going to be an exception to that, and that's at the CTE level. So those that work in the CTE will be able to go beyond the B10 and continue to go up past to B13. Okay. There's an increase in the declination payment of about $300, depending on whether it's family, 2-person, or single. We've also reduced the number of sick days that can be accrued from 175 down to 125. And then they have a sick bank that they can now, instead of refill once a year, it can be twice a year, and they can contribute up to 2 days into the sick bank. For emergency and personal leave, it is tiered now, depending on the association of the person that either passes as it relates to bereavement, where it's unlimited if it's immediate family, and as it goes to in-laws and some others, it reduced to 5 days. So you can see that language in there. It kind of tiers depending on association. We've removed specific names of arbitrators as it relates to arbitration where they might need, the district and the CEA might need someone to resolve an issue. So now it would just be mutually agreed upon rather than have people's names who may not even be practicing anymore. We've also increased the personnel who parents of newborns are eligible up to 20 days of paid sick leave. That's up from 10, and that is now equal to those that adopt. So both are at 20. For the veteran salary schedule, that stays the same, but we have added a new component for this contract only, which is an enhanced veteran salary. And what this does is this will give someone who has not taken it, they can earn up to $60,000 in leave in that 1 year. It's reduced by 1,000 for anybody that's less than 30 years, but the board will be required in years 2 and year 4 to fund at least 2 of them. But it can do up to 4 in year 2, 3, or 4. There is none next year because based on timing and the approval of this contract, we couldn't offer it. And then for prep time, the language in there as far as the times in which teachers can use classrooms and how that may be impacted by other programs. It relates specifically to daily unencumbered prep time. On the layoff procedure, we address 1 year only contracts and how they will be if a layoff is necessary, how that process will follow. Dues deduction, as of right now, if a person is not doesn't want to be a member, they're not forced to pay any type of service fee. There is language in here where we've removed it, but if in fact that decision is overturned, they can go back to charging a service fee. We've increased the disability income from $3,500 to $5,000 per month. And finally, there is a sidebar agreement to revisit the Appendix K, and that committee will look to convene no later than September 1, 2022, and shall make recommendations to the respective bargaining committee and the district by June of '23. The total in new money for this, I think, is in your packet, will be $7.5 million over the 4 years. Any questions?
Okay, anyone have questions? Yes, Ms. West.
Appendix K. What was that one? I'm sorry. Just the sidebar agreement to revisit Appendix K. Right. What is that though in here? Which one was Appendix K?
This one, salaries and other economic benefits. page
You'll find
36.
that on page
Oh, it
48.
is right there. That is the one. Okay.
Oh, no.
Di-
Well, that's what it's, oh, no. I guess.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's under.
What page
So
is it?
what is Appendix K?
Yeah, is that, yeah. Appendix K is the process for which we provide feedback to our teachers. Annually, you know that they are reviewed, they have walkthroughs, formal evaluations, goal setting, and this will give us an opportunity to sit down and review that program, that plan that we have. There are some areas that we would like to address that are not current. So we look forward to sitting down with the union and devising a new plan.
Okay, so it's not the leave of absence portion. It's the part that is about
Performance evaluation?
performance.
48.
Right. I'm not sure what you mean by leave of absence.
Oh,
but-
that was the K under
Right.
something else. Yeah, that was Roman numeral K on page 36. So I'm in the wrong spot.
So,
48, I think.
Superintendent, do we have Appendix K in this handout of packet things? I don't think so.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think that's what her
Okay.
question is.
No.
Oh, okay. So we don't have reference to that.
Okay.
Okay, I apologize.
No, good question. But Appendix K deals with the
I'm wrong.
method, timing, and procedure of performance evaluation for the teachers. Am I correct?
That's correct, and it's going to encompass looking at what do we currently using Marshall Plan with walkthroughs? Do we want to look at another plan there's other plans out there like the Danielson and other methods of which we can provide support and feedback for our teachers. So that, we'll take a close look at that. It hasn't been done in a while.
So it's a sidebar
Really?
agreement. We, in other words, in this particular contract, we agree to come to an agreement on that, and there'll be a team from both the
Right.
administration as well as from the union
Right.
that will resolve this.
That's correct.
And it'll be done in this fall, I believe.
Well, we have to, there are deadlines on it. If you
Okay.
can see that we have to come to terms by August 31st of 2026.
Okay. And the committee is going to convene on September 1 of this year.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Kate, does that answer your question?
But, normally you don't put that kind of language in the contract because the hours that would take to come up with an agreement around the evaluation systems are often not included in the bargaining, only that you agree to do exactly what you said, Jim, was to come together, the two groups, and work on it over a period of time.
Ms. West, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Good. Other questions for Mr. Dunn or the superintendent? Any further discussion with regards to the CEA contract as proposed and recommended by the negotiations committee?
I'll move approval of the CAA contract.
Okay, the move or approving the CEA contract was made by Ms. Walsh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Weinberg. without further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying, I'm sorry, Superintendent, do you have a question?
Well, just in case if anyone is governed by this contract, they should probably abstain.
So
If
anyone
there's
who
any type
may,
of gain out of this contract.
anyone who may have a financial gain or anything that may be affected by this contract should recuse themselves from this. I
Just
agree.
abstain.
Abstain, or just not
Just
vote.
vote.
Recuse yourself for whatever reason based on the fact that we don't want anyone here on the board to have a conflict of interest. Feel free, that is nothing wrong with that. Do you have is there anything specific you have in mind, Mr. Dunn, that you want to just come out and say, or is that just warning all of
I mean,
us?
our biggest conflict is when anybody gets a pecuniary gain from the contract.
A
And it may
pecuniary-
not be changing,
Reparation.
but maybe they're benefiting from a provision that's in here. It's
Like a
just-
retiree.
Like a retiree or retirement that may be affected by some of
But would a
these?
retiree be affected by?
Could that
If
be
they're paying,
affected
if
by
they're
this?
getting a part of their medical paid for.
Okay, okay, thank you for that clarification. We really don't want anybody to put themselves in a position that would be, that we don't want to put anybody in a position that would be questionable, and we appreciate that. So, once again, thanks for that clarification. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed and abstentions?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So the motion passes. Thank you once again to those involved in the rather, the detailed and a lot of hard work went into this, and I appreciate both the administration's as well as the union's efforts on this. And I think this 4-year contract will serve the district as well as our teachers well. Negotiations Committee had nothing else in that, so I will close out that report. We move on to recognitions and reports by the superintendent. I don't get in trouble with our student reps because they aren't here. We once again wish Janita all the best luck at college. I believe she's going to Connecticut,
College, yeah.
Connecticut College.
She was a
And-
camp counselor for a camp we were at last week.
Well, good. We appreciate her summer camp counselor, and we hope that that Finn is having a great time in Germany. I believe he's in Germany with the GAP program right now, and so we wish him well. And we look forward to his return as well as our new representative, which will come in the fall. So with that, Superintendent?
Well, my report is fairly short. It, as you know, school closed up on the 16th for our students, and we had 2 days of workshops for teachers on the 20th and the 21st. So it's been quiet since then, but now's the time to really dig in and do some work. But before I share a little bit of what we're doing, I want to welcome our new Assistant Superintendent, Kim Yarlot, who's with us tonight. Kim began last Friday, actually. For day one, we said, "Oh, you coming in, Kim?" And so she did. She joined us on Friday, and she's already tackled some of the issues that are issues that we have to deal with in the fall, and that's the teacher orientation and professional development. So appreciate having her here, and I know she's going to be a great asset to the school district, and we all look forward to working with her. So.
Welcome, Kim.
Welcome.
I just want to let you know, and we got our application in for state approval for our project, our middle school project. It was due on the 1st of July. We were in there. It was hand-delivered, I might add, by Jack Dunn and Matt Cashman. They wanted to make sure it was in somebody's hand. And no sooner had they come back, and they were waiting for the receipt that they had received it, and we received that. I think I put it in your board packet just to let you know that it had all gone through. But again, a great effort on the part of a lot of people here. I appreciate the hours, and I mean hours, that people spent working with our architect to come up with the information, the heart of that application. Paulette's here with us tonight, and certainly without Paulette and her staff providing the kind of information and data that we needed for that project, But we had so many others. Nobis Engineering came up. They were really strong throughout the project, and we really appreciate it. So now it's the waiting game, right? We just wait and see. We're trying to find out how many other applications were delivered, and more so, what were they? Like, I heard a couple from my colleagues when I was at the superintendent's conference last week, but they were small projects. They were renovation projects, not a comprehensive proposal like we had. So we'll wait and see. As you know, it's a waiting game. We won't know really for another 6 months whether we are at the top of the list. I can only hope that we are, because that's where we want to be. So
And who adjudicates it?
people at the department.
Do they have like a?
They have a team
they
of
have a
people that do it. Amy Clark oversees it. I believe she brings in folks that are skilled in this area, engineers, civil engineers, that type of folks. And we've had some people that work there, and they brought them back who used to be in that department. So
Thank you.
I expect that she'll have that team. We also got notified today. We have a formal notification. I think I mentioned it to you last week that the state is got a $13 million safety infrastructure bill now available. The application actually came out today. I know that Ellen and Matt and I jumped on it already. I actually got a phone call from the Concord Monitor from Eileen asking us about our project and what we were thinking and where we going to apply for the money. It's interesting. 10 million of the money comes from the feds. Through the, what do they call it, the American Recovery Plan, and 3 million of the money is from the state. And so that $13 million will be the total amount that will be awarded. And there's a couple of things that are happening. They're going to award by July, but we have to have an application in by July 22nd, and they'll use that 3 million first. I'd like to jump in on that, so we're going to work hard to get our application in by then. And then you'll be in the second round, which will address, if you don't get it in the first round, you're eligible in the second round. The one place that there's a caveat to this whole thing is that the total amount of grant can only be $100,000 per site. So, we're still working on that, so it isn't like we can only, let's for instance say we were doing something at Concord High School, which Mr. Reardon has been a big proponent of, I would say. We only have up to $100,000, so we have to think about how we're going to use that money effectively to meet the needs of safety at his building. So that's what we're working on. So that's the only caveat that I was disappointed. As you recall, Concord got well over $1 million, Jack, on on the first round several years ago. The district I was in got $800,000, and so this one they put I wish they hadn't done that, but it is what it is. So just keep you up to date on that. Let's see. I will be presenting the staff tonight, new staff for you to confirm. They've been offered contracts. As you know, you've allowed me to offer contracts in the summer since we want to make sure we get our candidates in, but you will confirm them tonight. But I'll also provide you at that time where we are with hiring and the vacancies. I know you're always interested in knowing where we stand to fill all of our positions. So other than that, I have to say it's been quiet.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for any of the topics that the superintendent's gone over? Ms. Walsh?
Are we going to begin the RFP process for an architect for the middle school? That was in our timeline, was July beginning, put out an RFP, so.
Yeah,
I noticed we don't have a capital facilities committee meeting this month.
We will, your answer to that question is yes, because in the meantime, we don't want to wait until the timeline comes through with the state, which is, January.
Right.
So we will be working and putting an RFP together. We'll bring that to your committee, the facilities committee, before we go too far on that. But yes,
Okay.
that was
So-
always part of the plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Walsh, and if we need to adjust our calendar a little later today, we can. Other questions for the superintendent on any of the topics? Yes, Ms. Hastings?
Just a couple in their positional questions. I'm noticing that we have someone leaving the middle school at 100% education and behavioral science teacher to go,
To CRT, Career and Technical Center.
oh, I see, that's what, so they're doing the same job but moving up
They're,
to the high school?
right, this
Okay.
position will be part of the Career and Technical program around behavioral science.
Okay.
That's part of their programs. She has left a position at Runlet.
Okay, and the only other one was a 60% English teacher at CHS to a 40% and a 40% CRTC English teacher. How, can you explain the difference between, I'm not sure what a CRTC English teacher is versus a CHS English teacher.
Isn't it that some of those kids do those classes here?
Right. We have class in English in the CRT program. A lot of career and technical centers realized over time that one of the areas that they were not doing well in was English. So you have youngsters who are very focused on construction, automotives, welding, all the programs, and go back and do English, Shakespeare, and Hamlet, and please don't take exception to that. Mr. Reardon being an English teacher back there, I can feel him right now smiling at me thinking, what is she saying? But that happens, and so they've created program in English to support those youngsters.
Okay.
And help them with where their interests lie in different areas.
So
She's taken out of the.
CRTC students would get their English requirements.
Still get their credit.
Okay.
Still meet
Okay.
their competencies. In a way that may be a little bit different than the English program up at the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, I remember when that started. It was a
Yeah,
really good move.
we found, my experience was in Exeter, and we found that youngsters were really struggling at home and not passing. So we began to bring programs into the Career and Technical Center so that they were successful, they did well, they passed their competencies in the technical areas as well as English.
That's great,
Yeah.
thank you.
I thought it was a great way to help kids be successful.
Okay.
I'm gonna go over those in a minute.
Sure.
Other questions for the superintendent for report? Superintendent, I just want to clarify something for the board as well as for those at home, and that while we are allowed to only apply for $100,000 per site, and while you did actually indicate and an example of the high school, we are considering applying for multiple sites, are we not?
I just used the Concord High School as an example,
Right,
but
so
the
for
answer
anybody
to
at
that is
home,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
we're
yes,
gonna take,
Yes.
we're gonna take a look at each and every site, and for any site that we have that the
Right.
security can be improved, we
Right.
will be going
Right.
after that, correct?
We have ideas for the elementary and for the middle and for the high school.
Okay.
But I was
Um,
trying to say that we can't, I wish we could
I
explain
know
that
I know
number.
you'd like to extend it, but I want to make sure for anybody listening at home that we are not just limiting ourselves. And may I ask a question, does that only apply to schools, or would it apply to this central office as well? And I don't want you to get into security details here, but I would just say if it's available and we have another location that may not be one of the schools, let's see if we can explore that as well.
Matt, is that part of
Yeah, I
the,
mean,
it's always
we,
been school safety around.
I know, I just want to check.
we did talk about that
Great
this morning,
question.
so when I meet with Ellen tomorrow, we're gonna cover all of our schools at different levels to apply for the grant.
Thank you, I just wanted to bring that up. Mr. Parker?
Does this include pretty much equipment, or is it also training and procedure? I mean, I'm not sure what the money is actually going to.
Most of the money will be for, the equipment. Let me give you some examples, like
Yeah.
cameras,
Right.
systems that, communication systems, alert systems. that will alert students and staff in buildings. So that's really where we
Okay.
focused on.
Okay.
I just as a reminder that Chief Osgood and Deputy Chief Thomas will be with you on the 18th, and we have a meeting around safety, and so there's some more issues around safety that we want to talk about with you in non-public at that time, and would include training, which we need.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Weinberg?
And for the infrastructure, are there parameters for if it needs to be physical? For example, could it include cybersecurity measures for cybersecurity infrastructure?
Well, I don't know that yet, Jonathan. I'll have to wait on that. I don't know the answer to that. I'll check with our with the grant and the details in the grant. But I mean, security is security, so I think that that has some possibilities, as we just heard, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Superintendent. Next item on our agenda is public comment on agenda items only. Is there anyone here that would like to make a public comment at this time? We would ask you to please do so in accordance with our school board policy on comments, but is there anyone that would like to step up and make a comment? Not seeing anyone. I will just remind everyone that we have another public comment session at the end of our meeting, or towards the end of our meeting, which is on any topic whatsoever. All right, with that, personnel. Superintendent, are you going to be handling this?
I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Ms. Guerin has a vacation this week, so I'm filling in for her. So if I don't have all the answers to every question on this, I will get you the answer. But for existing staff, these are all transfers. I would recommend the following: Deborah Hoyt to fill the position of a behavioral science teacher at the Career and Technical Center. She's currently the school psychologist at Runlet. Shannon White is currently the business teacher at the high school, and will continue in that position to fill the 1 year. It's only a 1 year only position at CRTC. Elizabeth York, we just discussed that position where she's working part in the high school, part in CRT. Again, we bring these back to you every year if they maintain those positions. Ashley DeVoe will replace Megan Rose, who transferred. She'll be at Abbott Downing as the special ed teacher. Hannah Hoyser is going to be the math coach. She'll be replacing Rebecca Friend, who has since left the district. This is a funded 1 year only. Sue Gorham who has been currently working as our nurse, on-call nurse. If you recall, we had an extra nurse to cover when we needed it. There was a position open on Janet Corcoran's retirement, and so Sue will be fulfilling that position at Millbrook. And Hannah Thompson, she requested a leave of absence from her tutoring position. She'll be replacing Erin Moore as a classroom teacher. Erin was a classroom teacher, and Hannah will take over that position and leave her tutoring position. So I'd ask that you accept all of those transfers and changes in positions.
Ms. Rowe.
I just have a question about the school psychologist position at Runlet. Have we filled that position?
We haven't.
I worry
but,
about that.
that's
It's
a tough,
hard to come by.
That's a tough position.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that Paulette has an interview tomorrow. So we did get candidates. We had more than one applicant.
Well, that's encouraging, I guess.
It is a difficult position to fill, but we did have a number of applicants, so I'm hopeful.
I'm so sorry, which Which one is this for?
The first
First
one,
Deborah
Okay,
Hoyt.
thank you, I apologize.
becoming a CRTC classroom teacher and moving from psychologist at Rutland.
We talked a lot about this. I talked a lot about this position with Steve Rothenberg and Ann Fowler. And we're really trying to improve and enhance the teacher education program at CRT. More kids involved, more students involved, and she has a plethora of a background in this area, and was a optimal candidate for that position. So
She'll bring a wealth of information around your non-typical students and all the things that go into the kids that, yeah, that, great, my daughter was CRTC for that, and that was at the time, the one little piece that was not lacking, but, the special ed piece and just the psychological understanding of kids. That's a great addition.
right, and we really want to encourage students to engage in this program and continue on in education. And so, bringing her in was felt that it was going to be a positive for the program. So, I'll keep you posted on positions
Want to
and
make
see
sure
the
it's a positive
vacancies.
for the kids at Runlet too.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it works out tomorrow for Runlet on their interview.
Okay, Mr. Weinberg?
And I see the note with the asterisk, but I just wanted to check. These salaries reflect
They do.
the current, not what we just passed,
You
correct?
just, yeah,
Okay, so these will be probably
all adjusted.
All adjusted.
Based on what you voted on tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Good point. Thank you.
May I also ask a question?
Sure, go right ahead, Ms. West.
Did Miss Friend retire? Did I miss that
She's going to work for the Better Business Bureau.
What?
She said hopefully she'll be back in education. She wants to get an administrative experience. Sorry.
I love
I just had a
her.
conversation with her because
Okay.
I loved her too.
Yeah, we love
it's
her.
a really big loss for the district.
Okay, thank you.
Or for
Well,
third
Is
graders.
that public information, by the way?
Like,
Yeah,
it's in it is, well, not where she's going, but
Right.
the fact that she is resigned, and I guess I would just summarize by saying, we wish Ms. Friend all the positive luck and everything in the world, but we're more than happy if she would like to reconsider and once again come back to our district. We appreciate the efforts that she has given us over the last year or so.
And we do too, and we wish her
Okay.
luck.
But point well taken, Mr. Parker. Are there other questions? Do I have a recommendation for this slate of teachers to be approved?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Ms. Hastings. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you. Superintendent?
So then we have a healthy list for new staff, starting with Nicholas Ellis, English teacher at Concord High School, Molly McCrum, world language teacher at Concord High School, Nicole Murphy, no relation, I repeat, no relation, Concord High School English teacher. You can see how busy Concord High School has been. William Priebus, Concord High School English. Samantha Radicic, school counselor at Concord High School. Rebecca Gregoire, health science over at the Career and Technical Center. Tracy Soros, Abbott Downing will be the school nurse. And she replaces a retirement, Janet Moffett. Emily Duty will be a special ed teacher over at Beaver Meadow. Kristen Silly, reading specialist at Kristen McAuliffe. Chelsea Hoadley, special education teacher at Kristen McAuliffe. So staff has been busy, and I'd ask that you accept those
I move that we accept the new
recommendations.
staff nominations.
Moved by Ms. Higgins and seconded by Ms. Walsh. Is there any discussion or questions with regards to this slate of teachers? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you, Superintendent. Superintendent, that's a lot of teachers that we have added, and I'm happy to see that as we head into July. Can you give us a brief summary of?
I was going to do that.
Well, good.
I was
Please
just
do.
going to do
I'm
that.
sorry, I don't mean to
So
jump
I
ahead.
was going to tell you what vacancies we have, and we're still looking for a diversity, equity, inclusion, justice coordinator. We need 4 administrative assistants, including mine, as you all know. Lyndon Jackett has retired, and so we're looking for that, including the receptionist here. Lauren also has moved on, and so we're looking for a receptionist here at the office. CRT has 1 vacancy, and I'm not sure which one it is, and has a pending acceptance, but they're in really good shape. I'm going to meet with Ann Fowler. I have a meeting with her tomorrow morning, so this one will probably cause a little stir, but we have 2 school psychologist positions open. We have a part-time nurse position opened at Runlet, 1 school counselor, 1 SLP, but I'm seeing that person tomorrow, so tomorrow morning I have an interview. 3 food service, we need 4 maintenance folks, and 3 technology program assistants, and I think you heard a little bit of that from PM tonight. Those are the techies, and they really are the ones that get out and really support the teachers. A 1-year only grant-funded school counselor interventionist at the high school. We still are looking for some nurses for one-on-ones. You know, we have some really medically fragile youngsters that really need the support of a RN or an LPN. So John and his team are looking for those positions. Bus drivers, I have a meeting again this week with Terry to get an update on that, but we know that we have some retirees in the bus department, so we'll be looking for replacements. Probably the one that's fluctuating the most is the educational assistants, the paraprofessionals. That's where we're really struggling and filling those positions. But I think we're in really good places for our schools and our classrooms and our teachers, so, and for the most part, our support staff, except for those 2 school psychologists, but we're working on it. But I think we're not in bad shape at this point.
Quick question, at the high school, it seems like we've got a lot of new English teachers. Is that unusual?
It's unusual for us because people rarely leave the high school. But we had a retirement, and another English teacher has become a librarian. So we had those openings.
Go ahead, Ms. West.
Not to ask too many details, but what are the requirements for an educational assistant? The positions you're having trouble filling?
We look for an associate's degree. You even have folks with a bachelor's degree. We have folks with a high school diploma. They get training. We train them. So it really comes in at all levels, Kate.
That was the question, is if maybe, I didn't know if there were barriers in terms of requirements, or I guess I don't understand necessarily what the educational assistant does practically in the classroom, but it does sound as though they don't necessarily need to have the same.
Right. Most of your educational assistants work with youngsters that have learning challenges. It could be English language learners. It could be our special education. It might be a youngster that's medically fragile that needs an assistance. We have students that need that extra set of adult hands to be with them at all times. Some of our more intense programs have more assistance in the programs. As you know, ESSA funded 17 educational assistants, paraprofessionals, in our 1st or 2nd grade classrooms with those youngsters because of the time that they were out of school because of the pandemic. So we know we have some vacancy there.
Have we considered reaching out to the graduates of teacher prep from this year in the CRTC program?
Yeah.
Because I know there's a large majority of students that love to come back and work at the high school and work with students, and it seems like that would be a really good pathway for the first experience in
Yeah.
education, as
You
well
know,
as just students who
getting-
just finished this programming. I imagine that has already been
That
a
program
pathway.
is so important to cultivate here in, I always say, you gotta create that kind of environment so they'll stay, they'll come back to Concord, even if it's a 2-year associate's degree, early childhood degree, those can be shorter than, in terms of time, to have people come back.
So we
But,
have reached out
New
to
Hampshire has a
them.
very, very, very low unemployment rate, so you got to remember that. Our unemployment rate is one of the lowest in the nation, so finding staff is not easy.
Okay, other questions? At this time, I would just make one extra comment, and that has to do with your administrative assistant, Lyndon Jacket, who is retired. For the record, I would like to just recognize and thank Lyndon for her very many years of service to not only your office, but to this board and to the last 2 charter commissions that she has assisted with. She's done an awful lot. She'll be missed, but we wish her very well on her retirement, and just want to say thanks. So I'll just add that, because this is the first opportunity I believe we've had to say that publicly. So thank you for that.
I will let her know that. I intend to have lunch with her tomorrow, and I will let her know that.
Very good. We are very, very grateful. Mr. Weinberg.
I apologize. I have one more question. Not specific on any name, but just on the certifications wise, what is the difference between a statement of eligibility versus a certification in itself?
So a statement of eligibility is given to someone either on an alternative 4 or 5. That means that they have a degree, but they may have a degree in math and they're applying for a special education job.
Understood.
So they get a statement of eligibility because they're on the critical shortage list that's put out by the department, and so they get this statement of eligibility.
Thank you.
Okay. Why, were you thinking of doing some?
We don't want to get into any areas of conflict of interest.
That's very true.
And so
He would
I will
not be able to serve.
leave that question unanswered. So, all right. Are there any other? Yes, Ms. West.
So one quick question, I apologize. The 2 special education teachers at the high school, it appears as though they are funded by ESSER funds. Did you talk to us about the program planning for those positions? And I might not recall. I'm just trying to figure out, I know we talk a lot about the cliff and planning for the future of different positions. And we've been talking a lot about the multi-tiered system of support and creating the infrastructure for social emotional well-being. So I'm just wondering about the plans for those 2 positions specifically.
Yeah, the ESSA positions, you're absolutely correct. That funding will run out in 2024. We have to prepare for that. There may be some other grants that will pick up those positions as grants become available. For instance, the homeless grant, we got another homeless grant, which allows us to extend the time of our coordinator, so working with families. And remember, our homeless numbers jumped at well over 100 of students that are homeless, but because we got an additional grant, it extends her out further. So even with some of those critical positions like the interventionist at the high school, Kate, we'll be looking, if that's a position that Mr. Reardon recommends and we want to keep, then we'll have to look at our IDEA money and other places that we could support that position, or the district operational budget.
I apologize if this has already been provided to us. I know we've talked about and seen a lot of presentations about the breakdown of how we allocate the different grants and the different funds, but is that all information all centralized in one location so that I can say, oh, I know the wellness coordinator is getting paid for from this grant, and so I know that this is probably funded for X amount of time, so that I could just look at these positions and see how they're funded and from where, so that I can get a map of when that cliff is for each position and which grants we
Right.
might be able to supplement. And
We have had that presentation at the instructional committee. Ellen has been in several meetings presenting that information and reviewing the grants. So, but you know what, if it would help for us to identify all the positions, and when the term expires, we'd be happy to do that.
I apologize. Maybe that's the piece that's missing, where I'm not connecting in my brain, having seen that. But I know from the instructional committee. Do you remember seeing that all together?
I don't remember seeing it like in a flow chart form or anything like that. We
Yeah.
talked about it a ton. though.
Yeah, the different pieces. I know.
Right. That might not be a bad idea. That would be so we have this whole school year and then another one before we lose funds. So that would be a nice little item in red to look at.
So we could always keep track
Yeah.
of which positions we need to keep on the radar, and
Or let's apply for extensions or other ways to fund these. These are
or
okay
are we
for now.
tracking the
Yeah.
success in a measurable way, so that when it comes time to decide if we still need this position, do we have any measurable way of determining if we?
Well, that is my job. I mean, and I'm sure that Ms. Yarlot will join me in that job. I mean, that's what we do. We meet with our grant coordinator, and we look at the positions, where they're coming from, where the funding is, and how, how long they'll be with us. I mean, there's going to come a point in time. Remember, that money was there to close the gap.
Yeah.
Of which we look at. We have another presentation to do to the instructional committee around student progress, but that is our job, is to monitor that and not only monitor the positions, how they're funded, but their effectiveness.
Right.
That's the question I have about math coaches. You have eight, 9 math coaches. The question that I posed to Chantel, our math coordinator, and to Mary Wilson, our curriculum person, prior to Kim joining us, is, has it made a difference? Have we seen students' performance improve?
And
Well, we had the presentation that stated that it had, but then it was brought up that we didn't have anything to compare it to prior, and that we don't have data sources that we can compare, right?
Yeah, we had
Because
that. Yeah. Because of COVID and all that. Right.
Because
I
it's
remember
all
that.
different,
meeting.
yeah.
Well, we had 1 year, we didn't even have data, because remember, we didn't even take any state assessments.
And that's and the same with our behavioral data. We store it's the Swiss data versus all. So we are consistently storing data in different formats, and so that when we go back to the idea of determining if a position is worth funding versus continuing to temporarily grant fund, and I hear you saying that's your job to determine, which I totally respect and understand and appreciate.
It is something that we do, but we need to make sure that we share it with you.
When you're done.
Well, I was just saying, I've also heard, though, that there is a lack of structure in monitoring those things. So I just, in terms of, right, the behavioral data, and in terms of making sure that as a district, we're always coordinating what we determine to be the eligibility standard for that position being.
Do we make it a district position, or do we
Yes,
stop it?
right? Do we use the
Funding
general
runs out, or
fund?
do we try
use
to
grant
find?
funds? Is it worth it?
Yeah.
What we decide if something's worth it, and when we talk about creating that map and that infrastructure, I'm just saying I don't have clear visibility to that. I as much as I definitely respect that we can always default to your expertise.
I just think that it's complex, and you know that, right? I mean, it isn't just positions in there, it's programs, and it's support materials and resources and training, so it isn't just positions, but I have no problem sharing where the positions are and how they will be funded over the next couple of years, and when that funding may end.
okay, Mr. Parker, and then I have a question from Ms. Cannon.
Thanks, Kate. I mean, I think when you're talking about personnel and program needs, it works both ways. I mean, you are trying to determine the needs of kids, and so some of these positions have been funded by ESSER funds because of the pandemic, all right? So, but we're also, as a school district, constantly reviewing, for example, do we need the same number of elementary school teachers when the population goes down? do we need the same number of foreign language teachers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, science teachers, based on the population the program needs? I think that's what you do as a school. You constantly, and then you have evaluation systems for the people that are doing those jobs. But I understand that it's a slippery slope when you take a lot of, one-time funding money to fulfill positions that may be necessary in the long term. But I think if they fit under the umbrella of faculty, they're going to be evaluated, correct, and identified. But it's hard to tell what the need will be into the future. That's what we do at schools, is
Just this year,
assess that.
Dave, we had 3 data sessions. We
Right.
looked at data in the fall, in
Right.
the winter, and we did it
Right.
in the spring. And we wanted to monitor progress.
Right.
Frankly, I wished we had made greater progress, but I also know this year was very challenging. If anybody thinks this year was normal, we had teachers out, we had students out for big chunks of time. And so and we looked at attendance, we looked at nurses' visits, we looked at discipline. And so as we tried to evaluate our systems of support around multiple tiers, right? And of certainly our math and our English scores for our kids, and our SAT scores at the high school. And so we still have a lot of work to do. This isn't over.
Well, it's also shifting priorities because things change.
Right.
And you have
Right.
to start saying, okay, we're having the repercussions of the pandemic and kids really struggling with this or that, then more resources should be going in that way. But you just can't be adding.
But
You
we
also
saw some significant
Yeah, right.
changes in data at the high school around discipline. Why? They put in advisories, they put in restorative justice, they
Right.
focused on student social emotional learning. I just got the data this weekend. It's amazing. It's amazing what they did. And so I use that. I'll bring it to you, because we'll want to share that with the instructional committee first, but we'll bring that to you to see whether the interventionists and the folks that we brought in helped us to get the kids back on par, where we think they should be.
So, Superintendent, Ms. Cannon had a question. We had several math coaches that are currently teaching that are on leave of absence from the special education department. Can you update us on the status of those math coach positions, as well as the status of where do we, are we covered in our special education department, and are we meeting both those needs?
Right,
Am I correct?
our math coaches are filled now. You saw tonight was the last one, and our special ed positions we're in great shape. I don't have any openings right now, so we've been able to fill them to provide for the students. And this report was to me on June 30th, so, things change every day, but I'm assuming this is pretty accurate.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Does that
Ms.
help?
Cannon? No. Ms. Cannon
No?
has a follow-up for that?
Okay.
Are our paraprofessional shortages
That's where we're
special
short.
ed?
Special ed
special
related,
ed?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we have a specific grade level that they're most significant? Are we missing the most at?
Across the board.
Just okay.
So, Ms. Cannon said she actually meant ESSER paid for our math coaches, so then we need special ed teachers to backfill those positions, and I guess she was asking with regards to, what funding for those, and follow on as to what happens, as Kate said, as we get into the year.
Yeah, well,
Second,
those-
third year that's coming up.
Will those staff get to go back to their?
Will they go back to their special ed positions?
Right,
What's our plan?
well, they've done it, they've just taken the year, and a second year, so they will be going back to those positions. You worry about the people that we hired, and now with being only a 1-year contract, would they lose? And, with the turnover, with people retiring, and, some people moving on, we saw that tonight, that tried new positions, got new jobs in other districts. Not a lot, But we feel like those folks that prove themselves in those positions will be able to cover, but we'll have to watch that, and keep an eye on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Point well taken.
All right. Any great discussion? Is there anything else to follow on with regards to personnel? Awesome. Next, we move on to communications and policy. This is a rather lengthy list. Our Communication and Policy Committee met twice during the last month
Did we vote?
on approval of those. I don't know, did we vote on approval of
I think we had.
No, we had a motion and a second.
So we were in discussion? Thank you for pointing it out. It was such a long discussion that I didn't.
It's not
So the
5 minutes.
motion was, actually, no, the new teachers was
We did
voted
vote.
9-0.
Oh, what's,
Those in
okay.
it, but
I just
thank you.
wanted to check.
It's okay. I'll answer that question every time to make sure that we follow our, that we get everything done that we need to get done tonight. But once again, thank you for that discussion because I think it was very beneficial for all of us. So moving on to communication and policy, Ms. Cannon has asked me to go over the items that we have here for the board, and I'm sure she didn't do it just because there's so many of them and it's going to be really challenging for me, but let's start and dive right in. Most of these are first readings, so I will go through. This will be the first reading. They would be, anything on a first reading will be followed on by a second reading at our next meeting. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at them in their board packet. If you have any revisions or changes that you want to point out right now, please let us know. Or what is your, yes, Ms. Cannon? Okay, so with regards to those, you can bring them up for discussion here, or you can call and notify Ms. Cannon so that they will discuss them. She'll discuss them with Karen Fisher Anderson, and that we will get any changes included in the next reading. But if there is a discussion that anybody wants to have, you're more than welcome to tonight. The first item on our list is policy number 620, which is the policy with regards to home education. We had some discussion of language in this and just clarification to make sure that we used substituted successful completion or attainment for what had once been the word mastery, since we used the word mastery a couple different ways in the district, and this is a clarifying item. And let me see, just make sure. No, this was one that was brought before us before. And there were some additional changes made by legislature. We brought it back again because we all felt that it was necessary to bring it before the board for a first reading. So that is included. It is recommended by a vote of 3-0, 3-0 to recommend this policy to the full board. So that's here for first reading unless someone has something they'd like to bring up right now. Okay. Not seeing anything. Once again, we will take a look at that the next time. The next one is a revision to policy 670. This is the promotion and retention of students. I'm sorry, this is the one where we did make the substitution for the word mastery. This is a case of just clarifying verbiage. This, I believe, is a required change. Am I correct on this, Ms. Cannon? I think this was required.
Yeah.
But, so this is required by statute?
The whole policy language is required by statute, or what is required?
Wording, I believe. No, required. This was, all right, yeah. This is a required policy. What we are changing here is the word mastery, and changing it to successful completion or attainment.
Right, that's,
And so we have brought it back for a first
That's on
reading.
home education, homeschooling,
no.
not,
No, that was, that was for regular students.
this is for
This is promotion and retention
Yeah.
of
Because it
students.
looks,
Policy
because like
670.
this,
It's a one-liner, yeah.
Yeah,
the old policy is a one-liner and the other one is a.
Yes.
much more, that's
So I have
the.
a question, I guess, is about the much bigger, which is are we saying that if a student's social growth requires them to be moved on, they will be moved on, or they have to meet these other things and they have to be socially ready to
No, I
move
think the reason we wanted, I think I sit on that committee as well, is that, when you're considering promotion or not, it's not just grades. You're considering the competencies, the performance, the recommendations, and extenuating circumstances. So I think, am I correct? So
So-
I think so.
it brings that into the
I
policy.
think this brings us
statement.
more in line with
Right.
the recommendations of the New Hampshire School Board Association policies with regards to this. And this is also in conjunction with the Code of Administrative Rules, 306.14D, promoting students, that was also utilized in this, and
Right.
that's why it's brought forward in its more lengthy form.
And that's fine. I guess I'm just going back, and maybe it's more of a question for the superintendent. If a student is not achieving core level competencies, are they eligible for promotion based on other factors?
Well, that's not what this says. It says that students should include, but is not limited to, and lists all of those. It's
So
like a
I think-
comprehensive
So
ideology.
they have
Is-
to sort of tick all the
Yes.
Or some,
Yeah.
or a
The-
combination. But
Well, I believe is my understanding that if they are not meeting the course level competencies, they will not be promoted.
No, not at all. So,
So you can be promoted even though you fail all
Right.
competencies?
Well, no, but.
no, but it's, so you have to,
It's called social promotion.
yeah, that's right, there's that. and
Well,
there's
that's my
move 'em on,
concern,
move 'em on, right. But there's also, before a child is moved on or held back, all of teachers, we're responsible to make sure that child was offered every opportunity possible to learn and retain all of those things. So a lot of things would go into that decision.
And
I
this-
think this just prevents a child from being moved on when they shouldn't or held back when they shouldn't.
Yeah, and it follows in with our new sort of policy in special ed, looking at the function of the behavior. Why is it caused by that? It could be all of a sudden they're homeless. It could be any number of different things that need to be considered. And then if they are promoted, it doesn't mean they aren't still required to make up those lacking competencies to a point of passing, right? So it's incorporating what we're current best practices. really.
Superintendent, it looked like you had some clarification.
So I was
I
going to say, so
do.
Ms. Walsh, would you
Yeah,
please
my-
contact Ms. Cannon and
I'm
Ms.
just trying to
Sanderson to get a
understand what
clarification of
this
this?
means. I think, I understand the complexity of the situation. I think we also want to make sure that students just don't get moved along and that we're not doing our job by them. And that, there may be very good social reasons and emotional reasons for a student moving on, but at some point, if we're not teaching them math or reading, I want to make sure that we're not just continuing moving them up.
I don't think that's
I
what
mean,
this
It's
says.
its criteria to be considered. I don't even think, to me, it doesn't even leave room for the hypothetical you're implying. But maybe
Maybe,
I'm
yeah.
incorrect, I apologize.
Superintendent, would you like to weigh in on this from that?
Well, it
the
is a
other
first
perspective?
read, but I will weigh in on it. First of all, we want every student to be competent in reading and math and be able to move along to the next grade level after they have been successful in those competencies. So to answer your question, absolutely, but there are circumstances where they may not reach the level of competency that we would require, and that's why our teachers, you'll see that. There isn't a classroom in this district that doesn't have youngsters that may be a little bit above grade level and youngsters that are a little bit below, and that's our teachers' job to differentiate instruction. So I want to be very clear about that. Number two, I like this policy because it's very inclusive of families and parents. And we sit down together and we decide what's the best route and the best strategies for that youngster, based on the teacher recommendations, based on data that we get from testing, and as well as from the parent input. And so that's really incredibly important. And so this policy gives us the opportunity to do that. One more piece, the guidelines will be approved by the board as an appendix to this policy. So one of the things that I will do this summer with our administrative team, our principals, and our assistants and folks that are working, we'll put together a guidelines, and you'll be able to see that. It'll be part of the book. So give us a little more time on it, but your points are all well taken. It isn't cut and dry. And if you ever get a chance, please read the research on retention.
Okay. So, some more clarification on that one, Ms. Cannon.
Matter of fact, I'll get you the research on retention.
Okay.
I think that would be great. If this isn't the appropriate time, but usually when we get to the second reading, nobody wants to talk about questions then because.
No, I like that.
No, I
I
bring
think
these up now and then.
Yes.
We don't want a policy passed that is not the best policy we can put forward.
You know, one way to think about it too is I'll see students that have been in school for 3 years, haven't gotten any credits because they didn't do any homework. And the school they were from made that a requirement. They can get an A in every test on the subject. So why is this kid being held back to 9th grade because they didn't do homework? So, I mean, I'm making just a very graphic example, you know, and a lot of times there are extenuating circumstances with these kids.
And I just want to make sure, and maybe the guidelines will handle that, which is that I agree that there are probably, a lot of good reasons to keep kids with their peer groups, but I want to make sure there's a plan to help that kid be successful. And
Right.
at the individual child level, if they're getting a 1 in reading and we're in first grade
I
and we're
agree.
passing them on to second grade and they're getting a 1,
Absolutely
catch
correct.
catch
They
up,
don't
then
No, I agree.
we're failing them. And so that's what I want to make sure that is a plan to make sure that we're not.
The other thing that comes into play sometimes, and I don't know that this would be in a policy, is if a student's making a year's worth of growth in a year, but they're a half a year behind their grade level, or 3/4 of a year, but, sometimes, I have two very different learners as children, and one knew everything right away, and one took a long time to come close to catching up, but she did. But there was a lot of focus on what needed to happen for them to learn. But that's, maybe it's not first grade to second grade. Maybe it's halfway through kindergarten, halfway through first. Does that child stay in first grade, or do they go to second grade? There's so much gray area here that a good policy will just leave room for conversation so that student A might make sense to stay back if their birthday is young, or, all those things, whereas student B might be best moved on.
It's a very complex
It is.
problem because you have a student that has not met the requirements for grade 4. And we move them on to grade 5. Now they're not only trying to keep up with grade 5 when they've shown us they can't meet
Right.
grade 4 requirements, but we're also trying to teach them grade 4 requirements. That's a lot to put on the student
Yeah.
without a plan for the classroom as
Yeah.
well. Because yes, teachers differentiate, but it's not always that, especially if you've got somebody who didn't demonstrate proficiency
Right.
in second grade, but now they're in 5th grade and they've got all those other years they're trying to catch up. How did we, so that it's
No,
very complex.
you're right, and look at the programs that we have in place. You have a pretty intensive special education department. You have a Title I, which addresses math and reading across the district. So you have programs in place to address youngsters. Let me give you an example of what Barb just said. It was a great point. At Millbrook, the principal made a prediction to me that she was going to see that close to 90% of her youngsters would grow 1 year. Now, she met that goal this year. It's unbelievable what happened. It was absolutely fabulous to see. But they're not necessarily on grade level
Right.
yet.
Right.
But they made a year's
Right,
growth.
right.
What do you, some kids might have made 12, 13 months. Other kids maybe didn't quite make the 12 months. But as a rule, over 90% of the kids made a year's growth and in reading. And she was just, they were just tickled, the staff. But they weren't all necessarily on grade level. So we have to think about it.
This is a more elementary school in terms of promotion. You get into high school, and now it's earning credits, which is like a job requirement more than a education, it becomes
And
different.
students in special ed can go to school till now, their 22nd birthday.
Right.
And I have students graduated 21, 20, 19. I mean, so the grade can be, variable
Yeah.
Ms.
that
West.
they're in. What's that?
No, I'm
Yeah,
just
go
saying,
ahead, I'm
Ms.
sorry.
West.
Okay.
I'm acknowledging your point, Mr.
Yeah.
Parker, I agree.
Thank you.
And Ms. West, you can ask your question or comment.
I was just going to say that in this policy specifically, the first thing is that it does say that the specifics of what those guidelines will be are up to the building principals and are going to be in the handbook. So this policy in itself is more of a vague overstatement that isn't actually getting into the nitty-gritty of whether or not somebody that has a fourth grade reading level gets to move on or not. But I do appreciate that second paragraph that you did point out, because I think that what it does do is it says that our responsibility on whether or not we consider a student to be getting what they need from us goes beyond their academic performance.
right.
So I see it as actually more towards the opposite direction. Just because you have all A's does not mean we've done everything we need to do to serve you, to prepare you for life in this community, and we recognize that. So that's what I get from this policy, and I just wanted to say that.
Good point.
It's an excellent point, thank
Yeah,
you,
good
Ms.
point.
West. So we have more discussion on this, with this, and thank you everyone for your input, and I'm sure Ms. Cannon was writing down copious notes, and that the Communications and Policy Committee will review that again between now and our next reading. Next item for first reading is revisions to Policy 671, high school graduation requirements. This is also in your packet. You will notice that the new requirement is more specific with regards to specific subjects and credits, as well as some additional information in addition into alternative credit options for folks, and will include the new requirement of a civics exam passage by our students that is included in law. That'll affect students that'll be graduating after June of 2023. It also addresses federal student aid applications for all students. I don't know if everyone has read through this, but is there any comments at the first reading? Yes, Ms. Walsh.
And this is more based on the minutes, and I know conversations that the superintendent would like to look at our credit requirements, which are relatively low compared to other districts. I think Nashua is 27, Bow is 24.
The majority are 24.
Yeah, and so I guess I would want to know what the timeline is for that and why we're not combining those and then updating this policy.
You're right, Mr. Reardon and I have had that conversation about the number of credits at the high school. We would like to increase those credits, but that decision hasn't been made about how many. But it really is going to become a budget issue, because as you increase credits, that means you need to have more staff. We'll look at the staff, we'll see if there's any availability, but right now I would say no, because if there were, that person's hours or position would have been cut. So what we will do is look at where we want to increase, in what areas, and it'll end up being a budget issue.
Also,
You'll see that next January when you look at the budget.
Go ahead, Mr. Parker.
well, also your high achieving students often will graduate with 28 credits.
Right.
This is a minimum requirement.
Right.
This is not, and I think on the other end, if you start adding a lot more classes to kids that are struggling, they won't graduate. So you're looking at both ends. It doesn't prevent somebody from taking 30 credits. So it's just something you have to consider both sides of that. Maybe 24 is better than 20, but just will remind you.
When
that
we
there's
talked
other-
about it, though, Dave, we didn't do it like all at once and everybody, like a
Right.
senior now, all of a sudden.
No, it would start with an incoming freshman
We would start
class.
with the incoming
For sure.
freshman and add, a credit to their plate, that kind of thing. So
Right,
that
right.
it transitioned nicely for them. I also think that this would help us with the number of open times that
Yeah,
students have
study
to
halls.
schedule. I always think that it's good to keep them busy and focused. So I think that's another good area to address.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Ms. Higgins?
No, that was.
You
that was-
got your,
yep, yep.
your fuss good? Yes,
Okay.
Ms. Cannon.
I don't have much voice, but the point of doing this was because the civics and the FAFSA that they redid this particular policy. It was not to look at the credits at this time. Okay.
Thank you.
Those other pieces are required by law, like now.
Right.
Correct. So for those that are watching or on streaming and all and may not have been able to hear Ms. Cannon's voice, she was pointing out that one of the key reasons why we are passing this right now as well is the inclusion of the civics exam and the FAFSA that is required by law to be, and that adjustment must be made. And however, I will say that, you know, to Ms. Walsh's point and Mr. Parker's point as well, that does not preclude us from looking at this policy going forward, making some adjustments to it as long as we retain those legal requirements.
Right.
So with that, are there any other comments with regards to policy 671? Okay. Policy 674 is also included for a first reading. Policy 674 is alternative credit options. This is a policy that needs to be required to be modified. And this policy involves various pathways for our students to achieve their diploma. It is included.
Is this the policy?
No, it's page 74.
Oh,
Is the alternative credit options. The diagram you were showing was just indicating which policies we have, all the policies we have to address, and which ones are required and which ones are supportive and optional. But the policy we're discussing right now is on page 74 in your board book, addressing, options for alternative credits outside of what would be considered your traditional go into a classroom and earn that credit, especially with regards to high school classes. Once again, I ask you to read this and send any questions or comments to Ms. Cannon as the chair of the committee. Is there anything anybody would like to bring up at this time?
On this diagram, I just don't know what IHCD means, or
The items-
IKE, or IKF.
All of those are, with regards to that, is a reference. We tend to to list our policies numerically, like 620,
Yep.
671. The New Hampshire School Board
Okay.
Association has a different nomenclature using letters. So it's just a reference if you want to see the recommended
Thank you.
policies and the recommended by the New Hampshire School Board Association, that would be the code you used. Great question. Thank you. All right. Policy number 675 for first reading is high school graduation competencies. This is on page 77 of your packet. It is also here for a first reading. Does anyone have any questions with regards to that? And if you have any concerns or wording issues, please notify the committee. Policy number 676 is also in for a first reading. This is alternative learning plans policy. This one is another required policy. Once again, we have worked to make sure that the terminology and vocabulary is consistent across all of these. Any questions or comments with regards to 676 at this time? So everybody has a lot to read over the next month. Policy 677 is distance education. This is also a first reading. This is also a required policy. And items that need to be offered
I think
related to DOE.
Jim, I think it's important to understand that these policies are all related to each other.
Right.
In other words, alternative credit option is, one of them is distance education, and you need to have the updated policy. So
Correct.
you're seeing these things all tied together for the high school.
Right.
Yeah,
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 and the following,
that
this
graph
isn't.
that we put in helps
Helps
explain
out
that.
Yep. Yeah, these are all linked and these are all required policies. In addition to, along the same lines is policy number 678 here for first reading, assessment of education programs. That is on page 85 of your.
Part of this is making sure our policies are caught up with a current state of learning. There's many varieties of learning
And
now
that
being
the-
presented, and we're trying to give credit for it, whether it's ELOs or distance learning or different types of work-related learning. I mean, I think it's great, but we need policies that support that current programming.
Great point, Mr. Parker, and this is, all of these have been reviewed to be consistent with each other and to complement each other as well, so that we have a pretty, well, although it's hard to say, and easy to navigate set of policies with regards to this, and this is
Right.
also there for first reading. Yes, Ms. Hastings?
Just taking a quick look at these, I'm noticing that final decisions seem to come down to a lot of the building principals. And while I have the utmost confidence in Mr. Reardon's ability to do that, is that currently the way it is as well with most classes, or is that a new responsibility that we would be giving?
It really hasn't come up as an issue, right?
Okay. So you wouldn't expect it to necessarily in the future as well?
Realistically, asking you that question, I think what would happen is that we would assess the situation, refer to the student, kind of what you were talking about before, what's in the student's best interest, where the issues have gotten in the way of his or her success, and make a decision from there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
The other thing on this policy is this is this includes a requirement for the superintendent to review and ensure that data assessments are compiled, analyzed, and summarized, and that the superintendent will be required to present that summary to the board. That is also in this. So that is another first reading. The Communication and Policy Committee then met on June 29th to review, I believe, 4 or 5 additional policies that we are not bringing forward at this time because it's, we're going to save a few things for the next board meeting.
Well, they look like fun ones.
They are very, yes, they're all fun. All our policies are fun. That's why this is the best committee to be on. But yes, we have more coming down the line to be able to, we want to make sure our policies are updated and that we have the right ones in place as we head into the school year for the coming year. So there's a lot of work associated with this. So, and my apologies to the Communications and Policy Committee for their workload. That, I don't know. Ms. Cannon, did I do a good enough job in covering and summarizing this for you? I know I didn't do as good as you, so you would have done better. And Ms. Cannon is indicating that the legislature has required a great many of the policies that we are reviewing right now. These are in response to legislative updates and changes, so that's why there's so many of them at this time. And with that, if there are no other questions, I will cease talking and we will move on to a new committee. In this case, yes. Oh, and Ms. Cannon says thank you, not only to me, but to everyone here who contributed to the discussion. These are all critical policies, and I really appreciate the fact that all the board reads them and has input and is really committed to making them right, because, as I said earlier, getting these right and spending the time to do this will really help our students as well as our teachers and parents. So thank you very much. The ad hoc committee on equity, the Equity Advisory Group, I believe Superintendent, who will be presenting this?
We're still working on our position, diversity, equity, inclusion position. And we have 3 finalists. I'm currently undergoing reference checks, so we'll keep you posted on that. But really, that's all at
Great.
this point.
So, but we are moving forward on that position?
Yes, we are.
Good. Anyone else have any questions or comments with regards to that? Next would be the other business with New Hampshire School Board Association Delegate Assembly. With go ahead, Ms. Cannon.
So again, I don't really have a voice, but I spoke with the New Hampshire School Board Association, and Barrett Christina said no other school district has asked about finance, campaign finance. He was going to look at whether other school districts across the country are looking at this issue. I haven't heard back from him. I did try my hand at putting together a resolution, but frankly, I was really sick, and I don't have a resolution to put before the board.
Okay. So,
I
Go
think
ahead.
to clarify, to expand on this, one of the reasons why we would be going through the New Hampshire School Board Association is because the Charter Commission found out that they don't have the legal authority in order to have the school board pass a campaign finance disclosure. That's what the Secretary of State's office said. That's correct. Right? No. Attorney General's office.
So what are we trying to?
Attorney
So what we're discussing here, and just to summarize it quick before Gina, just what she had said before, is one of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Weinberg, if I'm going to, but one of the recommendations of the Charter Commission that they had intended and wanted to put forth was that we would be beholden to financial disclosure in our campaigns. The Attorney General's comment back was that we do not have the authority to make that requirement under law. Go ahead, what?
The Attorney General's office said that the commission did not have the ability to require the board to do it.
They said the commission did not have the ability to require the board to do it, and I believe that under current statute, we don't have the authority to pass a resolution that would be.
That's undetermined.
Oh, that is not determined. As far as that goes, the commission, I know, is not putting forward this. They are not going to challenge that finding by the Attorney General's office. So I believe we were going to reach out to the New Hampshire School Board Association. The New Hampshire School Board Association is not aware of other school districts that are brought this forward as a problem yet. Ms. Cannon was going to put together and potentially put together something for us at a future meeting that would be something for us to bring before that delegate assembly. We don't have it right now. I know that the Charter Commission plans on addressing this body in next month,
August.
I believe in August. So that, well, if it isn't a topic, it can be a topic if anyone here asks a question with regards to it. Ms. West.
Is the reason that it's not an issue is because no other districts have to disclose the campaign finance when they are running for school board seats in other districts? So
I don't know enough to comment.
I don't
on
know
it.
if it's that or if it's because we have such a weird
Unique charter.
structure because the law says cities can require it.
Right.
That's
Yes,
exactly
Mr.
the problem.
Right.
Is we are unique in the entire state, and the legislature hasn't thought about it. And for whatever reason, the Attorney General's office thinks that since the legislature hasn't done anything about it, that we can't do it through the Charter Commission, and I think the Charter Commission's position will be, when they come to talk to us, that they would like us as a board to adopt a policy.
And you're saying it's undetermined whether or not we can?
Well,
We can adopt a policy, but whether or not we can require it.
whether we, the problem.
We have the
basic-
authority to require.
The problem basically is that we could adopt a policy for people who are sitting on the school board.
Mhm.
We can't necessarily adopt a
For people who
policy.
will run.
Who are running for school board, but we'd ask them, as a courtesy to do it, and if they don't, then,
They don't.
then they don't, and people might find out about that, so.
So this is, I can see, going to be a good topic for when the Charter Commission comes next month.
Can I
ask you to
correct
think about
that?
some questions and.
They don't want to, they're not, I met with them on
Mhm.
Friday. They're going to present to you in October. They
Oh,
want to be
okay.
able to talk with you about the warrant, right? The articles that will be in the November election. So I believe that Bill and Betty will be here to talk to you in October.
October?
Yeah.
Okay, so it won't be next month, it'll be in 3 months, but, more to come on this, but at this point, this is a open item with regards, I know it was something that was brought to the Charter Commission by at least one member of the community, if not more.
And when all the resolutions are submitted, Kate and I will make sure to come back to the board to make sure to get approval as well.
Well, the other thing is we can submit one late.
Exactly. There can be kind of floor amendments and late amendments as well.
This is for the delegation of the school board.
Exactly.
We're gonna.
So there's more discussion.
So many things.
More discussion to be had on this.
Although if they're like our school board, floor amendments don't really do much since we send everyone with instructions.
We will see. All right. Any other business that is not listed here before we move on to our proposed calendar of meetings? Nope. Superintendent, proposed calendar of meetings.
Yeah, we have 2 in the packet for the month of July. We've already started the first week. We have, not on the calendar, but tentatively scheduled a policy meeting tomorrow night at 5:30. Scheduled here as a non-public. So it's been scheduled.
You said tomorrow?
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
What is
Policy.
Policy.
Oh, policy, okay.
For those people that are on policy committee.
That's tomorrow.
That is tomorrow.
Got it.
So that's not on this calendar, but is a
That's
policy.
just for policy committee membership.
Just for policy.
Right. That is a, yes. That one is one that we had discussed as the committee earlier. Okay.
Following
Correct.
week, you have a special board meeting, non-public, 5:30 here, to begin the process of the superintendent evaluation, which is a annual requirement that you have per
Correct.
policy. The following week, executive committee, and on the 18th, we'll do the agenda at 5 and followed at 5:30 to do a meeting with, as I mentioned before, Chief Osgood, Brad Osgood, and John Thomas, a deputy chief, talk about safety. And again, because we'll be talking about a lot of the protocols and procedures that we have, it'll be held in non-public.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
And Superintendent, while that is a non-public meeting as it needs to be, if community members have any specific concerns with regards to student safety, I would encourage them to please reach out to anyone on the board or to your office with any specific concerns that will be brought to our attention. And, I want to invite that. Thank you.
That same week, we have a communication and policy committee. We will be addressing some new policies. If you feel overwhelmed now, just wait. And then on the 27th, the following week, you have another meeting to finalize the superintendent's evaluation.
Is that the full board or is that when the executive committee?
No, that is, I believe, full board.
Both.
And then we will schedule the executive committee to have a meeting with the superintendent following that.
Month of August, you're starting the month right off with a school board meeting on the 1st and capital facilities on the 3rd. We should have, some details specific to request for proposal around architect work, so we'll be preparing that over the next month. The week of the 8th, 9th, 10th, I will be conducting the annual administrative retreat, and that includes the entire council of about 30 people. We have 3 days planned, 1 day for the central office, and then 2 days for the admin council. 1 day will be a training session, and the second day we'll be working on the strategic plan. So we have a busy 3 days with them. The following week, Finance Committee, that, I think that's Pam, you had that committee and you asked to have that. So if there are particular items you want, would you let us know so we can?
I did send a list.
You did?
I did, but I can resend it.
Yeah, I'll check. I'll just check my email. Sorry. And then another communication and policy, just again, because we, Jean is right. There was a lot of policy and work in the education side of the legislature that has really put a lot of work on our plate. So that's why we're meeting so frequently. End of the month, it's hard to believe, but we're getting closer to the school opening, and executive committee on the 22nd. I won't say that again. Followed by the instructional committee meeting on the 24th. In preparation for the opening of school, and we'll have a lot of data for that committee. We also intend to do onboarding orientation for new staff that week. Kim has already let me know this morning that she would like to do the teacher orientation that week before school opens. A couple of work days at the end of the month, followed by the opening first day of school on August 31st for students. How's that make you feel?
On the 18th, how long will the executive committee be before we have a non-public meeting?
Oh, the executive committee
Great
is
question,
really.
that's a half hour.
It's usually a half hour, Dave.
Okay.
It just sets the agenda and the calendar.
So actually, it's a half hour, so the special board meeting, non-public meeting will start at 5:30?
Yes.
No, start at
Yeah.
It says it starts at 5.
Getting to like 5:30.
Because the executive committee-
Yeah, it's usually a half hour for the executive committee.
That's right, 5 to 5:30, yeah.
Yeah,
I always,
exactly.
You're all.
I always forget the executive committee's not.
Early.
I think it's at 5:30 and it's at 5. How long have I been on the board? A long time.
That's all there is, unless somebody has something else that they'd like to add.
I move we adjourn.
No, well, sorry, we can't, I'm not going to allow that motion at this time because we
Somebody might
are,
want to talk.
we are required to admit any public comment. And so if anyone there would like to make a public, in our audience would like to make a public comment at this time on any topic, please step forward. Okay, not seeing anyone. We have already had, I'm sorry, Ms. Cannon.
I just want to thank everyone for being patient with my not having a voice.
Ms. Cannon would like to thank everyone for being patient with the fact she has no voice this evening, and there's no problem at all. Yes, Ms.
Didn't the superintendent say she had a non-public?
Do you have
Yes,
a
I was just.
Oh, you have a non-public following this as well?
Yes.
All right, so we had a non-public to start, we'll have a non-public to end. But with regards to that, we will go off the air. At the end of the non-public meeting, we will come out of non-public. The only items that we will be covering at that time will be coming out of non-public and sealing the minutes, and then our adjournment. So we will not continue the broadcast, but no one is missing anything. So with that, do I have a motion to go into
I
non-public?
move we go into non-public.
Second.
With regards to superintendent, we need going into non-public pursuant to what reason?
It's student matters.
So
Just let me go back to the,
91A-C.
But wasn't there also?
let's just make sure we have the,
Oh, I like that. Wasn't there also a potential contract issue?
so let's make sure we're going in dash C. Is there additional information or items as to why we were going into non-public so that so we can put it in for the record. Anyone?
Where's Jamie?
Hold on, I got it. I can't remember the number for students.
I'm printing it out and stuff.
What's the student one? It's right.
A53 is school records of pupils.
Yeah, it's a pupil issue, so, yeah, there it is. It's under 91A5, Roman numeral 3, sorry.
Okay, good.
So I move we,
Sorry.
go into non-public under RSA
91-A:
5, Roman numeral 3.
3.
Thank you.
Student matters.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Weinberg. This is a roll call vote, so,
I'm on it, I'm on it.
so
Get my list.
as soon as Ms. Higgins is ready, go for it.
You're gonna say-
Bob, Mr. Cotton, forgot your last name.
Yes. Wasn't it?
Jonathan Weinberg.
Aye.
Kate West.
Aye.
David Parker.
Aye.
Gina Cannon. Brenda Hastings.
Aye.
Pam Walsh.
Yeah, I
James Richards.
Aye.
And Barbara Higgins says aye.
Okay, we are in non-public session. Thank you, everyone.